to talk about why self-publishing matters. Now, we've come a long way in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, if you self-published your book, it was considered to be vanity publishing. If a publishing house wasn't prepared to take it on, then it wasn't, viable. It wasn't worth reading. That's changed. And there are a couple of reasons that's changed. Number one, the technology. We have affordable print-on-demand technology now and ebooks, which means that your book can be produced much less expensively and reach a much wider audience than it could 10 years ago. And because of that, the publishing model has changed. Publishing companies now are more likely to reject your book than take it on. In years gone by, they would nurture a writer. Now they can't afford to. Now, because the dynamics have changed, the economic dynamics have changed, they need to know that nearly every book they take on is going to make its money back. So chances are, especially if you're a first-time author, you're not going to get a publishing contract. So that's one reason why self-publishing matters now, to enable the rest of us to have a voice. And that's the wonderful thing. What I've found now, I'm an editor, I'm a proofreader, so I've been trained to look for certain things in books, and it's a bit more than your obvious commas and grammar and things like that. But what I've found since self-publishing, with the rise of self-publishing, is now I read very few trade books. I am actually more interested in self-published authors. I find their stories are more original. I find their dialogue more interesting, their characters more interesting, and even non-fiction from self-published authors. I find there's some really good quality stuff out there. There are people out there who have discovered their niche and they're helping other people in their way forward in life. And because they can now self-publish, they can find people all across the world that are interested in that little niche. Now, I'll give you an example. One of my favourite self-published authors is Frederick Lee Brooke. Now, I can talk about Fred because he's not an indie mosh author, so I don't feel any bias. I don't feel like I'm publicising anyone unduly. The first book of Fred's I read was Doing Max Vinyl, and some people didn't like it, but I found it was a real eye-opener. It's about the recycling business, and it was about an unethical recycling operator. Now, they're not all like that, obviously, but it was something I'd never considered. We all just think, yes, I'm recycling, I'm doing the right thing, I'm putting my stuff in the recycling bin, but do we actually know what happens to it after it's taken away? So Doing Max Vinyl was an entertaining look at what the other side of that story could be. But Fred's characters are always interesting. His first three books were the Annie Ogden mysteries, and Annie Ogden was a return vet, a female army veteran. He also had a celiac character who had her own bakery. She had a gluten intolerance, so she had her own bakery. And another character, one of my favourites, Roberta, a transgender character, who was just absolutely fascinating. So Fred writes about people who just are believable, and they're people that we all know, but he brings them into stories, and they're not token characters. They're actually part of a viable storyline, the way our celiac friends and our transgender friends are part of our lives as well. His last series, The Drone Wars, blew me out of the water. It's set just probably 10 years from when he wrote it, so it's set around 2022, I think, from memory. But the books talk about how the world could change so dramatically just in 10 years. And that frightened me. I love speculative fiction. I love people looking at what could happen and where we could be. And that sort of stuff raises our alertness. I mean, if you think of 1984, Orwell's 1984, reading that, so many people read that in the 70s and the 80s. We're the ones now that are aware of privacy issues. I wonder how much we would care about privacy issues if 1984 hadn't been written. Obviously we would, but would we have taken longer to become aware? So, I mean, obviously 1984 wasn't self-published, but you get the drift. Self-publishing can bring through those gems to make us think differently. So, even as an editor, and as a book formatter, I help people publish their books, so, I format. But even as an editor and a formatter, if I've got a good story, I can forgive typos in the text. And I know there'll be people out there screaming, I can't, but I can. If you give me a good story, I can forgive a certain level of, a certain error rate. But the other reason for self-publishing is cultural history. Now, Indigenous people across the globe have, for centuries, for generations, passed their stories on orally, okay? And the Australian Indigenous folk definitely have. Now, we all have a chance to document our stories. We all have a chance to write our stories, whether they're our family histories or the story of our own life, and even when they're fiction, they're drawing on cultural elements of the world in which we live. Now, in Australia, if you write a book and you attach an ISBN to it, you're obliged to lodge legal deposit copies. Now, one of those legal deposit copies goes to the National Library in Canberra. Now, other countries have similar schemes. They're called different schemes in different countries. But Australians now, you write that book, whatever that book is, a copy of it goes to the National Library in Canberra, and it's there for posterity. So what you've written is there forever. Now, even if it's fiction, you just fast forward 100 years and you've got a great-grandchild or somebody, or if you haven't had kids of your own, a great-great-nephew, somebody, a descendant of yours, discovers that book in the National Library. And there it is, it's got your name on it, and they know you wrote it, and now they've got something in their family tree research. You're more than just a birth date and a death date. They've got your voice. They can read that book, and no matter what the topic is, there'll be something in that book that's your voice. And they might even get a link to that. They might even think, oh, I use that expression. They might not know anyone outside the family that uses a particular expression, but perhaps 100 years earlier you were using that expression. So there's a wonderful thought that we can live on, and self-publishing gives us that chance. It gives us that chance to live on forever by lodging a copy of the book for our nation's cultural history. So there's more to self-publishing than ego. There's more to self-publishing than trying to make money. These are just side effects. The fact is, you can contribute to your nation's cultural history by lodging a copy of your book with your National Library. So that's my thought from the Mosh Pit today. I'm Jenny Mosher. Thank you for listening.